Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And in this case, we're talking about a subject I know very well. It's City Current and our efforts to power the good in Middle Tennessee and Nashville. We're honored to be joined by Kelly Meyers. She is our Nashville Market President with City Current. And Kelly, how are you doing?
Doing fabulous in Nashville. It's everything is going so well here. The energy here, couldn't be happier.
Well, let's go ahead and dive in. And for those who follow this show, our mission is to power the good, events, media, philanthropy, relationship building, community connection, all these things. But when you're out there talking about City Current, how do you describe City Current?
It's funny, it's kind of one of those things where as a company, you think you're one thing, but when you start talking to your customers, they bring up so many interesting points that maybe you don't think about. And so I always talk about the relationship aspect. Nashville's a growing market and people here, we've got people moving to the city. It's no surprise, in the droves. And so it's about relationship building, but the relationships with a purpose. And I think that's where our partners maybe differentiate us in City Current from maybe other organizations that they would be a part of. And so it's really about creating those professional relationships that lead these individuals to powering the good in our community, to maybe their next client, maybe it's a vendor, maybe it's somebody that can help them, but they've all realized that it's the relationships that create this activity. It's not just about getting, it's about giving. And so really, truly, it's really about building those relationships. And then the way we do it, like you said, it's so unique. We have all these events, we have tons of media that we produce, and then the best part is really the volunteerism and the philanthropy, seeing these executives roll up their sleeves and get involved. That's where those deep relationships really come into play.
So when you talk about the corporations, the partners, we have a ton of Nashville, Middle Tennessee based companies that have partnered with us. And so we're in Memphis and Nashville in terms of physical presence, but talk about the corporate partners in Middle Tennessee.
So our corporate partners are really they're unique. And I always say this, people say, well, what do they look like? And these are companies here that want to grow. Obviously, they're focused in this market, but really and beyond. I think all of our businesses, especially after COVID, being virtual and being beyond just a certain demographic, it is pretty commonplace today. So they want to grow primarily here, but also beyond. But one thing that's unique is they all believe in this top-down leadership. It's a servant leadership type model where from the CEO to the receptionist, everybody has a role to play. And it's all about the message and the branding and also being good corporate citizens. They also, I would say every one of them share a core belief that as a business community, it's really their obligation to give back and to engage their teams. The young professionals coming up, it's such a great way to see these corporations kind of grooming and mentoring these young professionals. So they want to grow, they want to be engaged in the community, they want to give back. And again, using this as a professional development tool, the younger folks coming up through the business ranks, not to be tongue in cheek, but really in this virtual world that our younger generation, creating relationships one-on-one and personally, maybe a skill that they're not that great at or could use some polishing. And so by using City Current, it's really showing this younger and our next group of leaders how to create those deep, meaningful relationships that are really based on service, not so much what I can get from them. The business will come if you're willing to get out there and give and do the work. The business will come later.
And anyone can go online, citycurrent.com. You can see our corporate partners, and they range dramatically from Delta Dental of Tennessee to Chronicle Partners, Element 47. So, when you look at it's a broad variety of different companies and industries that are all category exclusive that basically join forces and funds to do everything that we're talking about to help us power the good. We have TV and radio shows. We have columns and books and podcasts. Give us some of your favorite parts when it comes to the media. And just like we're talking about right now, being able to really share stories of impact and talk about, especially for companies, their philanthropic engagement that a lot of times you don't have a chance to see. So it's a lot of good news, but it's stuff that you don't normally get to see. So why is that so important?
Well, I think a lot of it, I just think about the work that you're doing with Delta Dental. So they're one of our newer partners, but they have a foundation that a lot of people just don't know about. And I think corporately, they didn't create this foundation to toot their own horn or to get the credit. They did it because it was the right thing to do. And oftentimes, if you're promoting it, it might seem self-serving. And it's truly not. Their heart is in the right place and they're doing amazing work. The problem is nobody knows that story. And to me, as a consumer, that's the story I want to hear, because that makes me want to do business with them. And so I think by them joining with City Current and us having the radio presence and the television show and the podcast, we can tell their story. And to me, it's more genuine. That's really, we always say that's how you win the hearts and trust, is by going out there and doing the good work. And so the television show kind of came about. It was one of the good things that came out of COVID, in that, we had all this media and we have all this stuff. And being able to create this television show out of it has been phenomenal. And we talked about a story the other day, somebody sees the television show. We don't necessarily hear the good, but we had one individual, they were on the television show and ended up getting the biggest single order that they've ever had in their business history. So there's good stuff coming out of it, but it's like we're promoting them. They're not promoting themselves. And so I think it's coming from a much more genuine place.
Absolutely. Sundays are a good day to power the good news, because
Absolutely.
Sunday we're on, all 5 of the Cumulus Media Nashville stations. So 5 stations in Nashville with Cumulus, which is awesome. And that's every Sunday morning. And then same thing for our TV show on MeTV. So you can definitely see and hear all this good news that, like you said, is leading to powerful stories of impact. And I just think it goes to show there is a huge need and desire for positive news, and people are paying attention and acting on that. One of my favorite parts, just like you mentioned, is the philanthropy. And when you look at the ability to financially give to support nonprofits, that's extremely important. But like you said, the volunteerism, the physical service, rolling up our sleeves together is where the magic truly happens. And so share a little bit of just some of the opportunities. I know we've got Samaritan's Feet coming up. There's a lot of ways that people can serve with us. Talk about the philanthropic engagement opportunities.
And that, during the last couple of years, unfortunately, those were the things we couldn't do. We couldn't be in big groups. We couldn't do these big, large scale events. And so I think the energy behind the events we're having now is phenomenal. And we just did last month a volunteer day with One Gen Away, which is, for those that don't know, it's a nonprofit based in Franklin, and they do food rescue. And they want to get food. They want to rescue it from maybe grocery stores or for restaurants and get it into somebody's pantry that day. And so we had a Saturday event. You had entire families, mom, dad, kids, everybody there side by side, distributing food. So that's one of the things that we're able to do. And then in October 14th, it's Friday, we're doing a Samaritan's Feet event, and we haven't had that here for 2 years. And it is an organization that puts new socks and shoes on kids. And you're like, okay, that's great. But really what happens is it's these business executives that get on their hands and knees. They're washing the feet of these kids, asking them what they want to be when they grow up, telling them to stay in school, get good grades, giving them new socks and shoes. And it is the one event of the 180 events we do a year. 2 years later, the one event everybody talks about is Samaritan's Feet. And I'm so excited. I cannot wait for October. Manny Ahome is the founder of this organization, and just his heart and his warmth and engagement. Damian Horn is going to be with us this year as a local songwriter and a musician, and just amazingly talented individual. So we cannot wait to have that. It's open to the public. We need tons of volunteers. Hint, hint. You can get more information on our website, but yeah, come out and really experience. That's the true heart, I think, of what City Current and our partners are all about in those types of events.
Absolutely. Talking about Manny and Damian has a powerful story of supporting Samaritan's Feet. And there's an opportunity to tie in to our signature breakfast series. We do that 6 times a year in Nashville. So that's a huge event, bringing together business and community leaders. We also have workshops and seminars, and there's partner only events. And so go back to the event side and how those 180 events, as you mentioned, kind of manifest and come together.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And Eileen Vick is our events manager. I have to say, there's no way in the world we could do it without her. She is phenomenal at what she does. I always say she's the one person on our team that thinks of the one thing no one else thought about. She's so good at it. So thanks to Eileen's help, we're able to do all this. And I think the community sees the big events. They see, the signature breakfast 6 times a year. They'll see Samaritan's Feet, but we meet a lot individually. And it's about relationship building. You can't build a relationship unless you are together. And I think, again, the last few years was a lot of online where people were just, they're hungry to be together. And so every month we do 3 to 4 events that are just the partners. They sit in a conference room and they want to learn how they can help each other. Who's my ideal client, or how can I'm trying to hire some executives? It could be whatever. Everybody uses it differently, but it could be, they're trying to engage a certain nonprofit, or they're considering board service, whatever it is. And it's an opportunity for these business leaders to engage together, create those relationships. We do those every single month. Once a quarter, we do a women's luncheon. So it's really about empowering and engaging women executives, and also a mentoring, maybe for a female executive to bring a younger female executive to this event. And at those events, we always highlight a nonprofit that serves women and girls. So that's phenomenal. And then every month, again, going back to the nonprofit, the giving back, we do have a lot of our partners that are super engaged, sit on boards, or have done a lot of work with nonprofits, and they bring those stories to us. So we do a nonprofit tour every month where we bring a group of executives to a nonprofit, allow that nonprofit to tell their story. We provide a quick lunch. Also, we always ask, how can we help? How can we get involved? And really, if nothing else comes of it, it's just powerful information, so that if somebody were to ever encounter somebody in need, they would know, hey, I know a perfect place. I know somebody that can help you. Or it might be an executive that could really lend their professional expertise, maybe as a board member or something like that. So, a combination of all these media events, nonprofit engagement, and then some maybe more business development or tactical environment. So we try to hit all sides every single month and do it to the best of our ability. And again, thanks to Eileen for getting all that together. And then thanks to our partners, because they really are the ones that make it happen. And they're the ones that, it's kind of the funny part is, we do 150 to 180 events a year. Then they meet one-on-one outside of us on top of that. So, truly, like the City Current meetings, there's probably more like 200 or 300 that go on, and we don't even know about half of them.
And to your point, all of them use CityCurrent a little different. And I think that is part of the neat piece of it is, the ownership that they take in it, and it's theirs just as much as ours. And yet they all, they're using it for all these different things, but they all get value out of it. So there's an ROI for them that makes it very easy when you look at this, road ahead where we're all a team working together, getting all these different things out of it that's really valuable. Talk about, on your end, some tips, because one of the things that we talk about often is the fact that we kind of take for granted the fact that all these things that we know, especially when it comes to networking and relationship building. And when it comes to going to events, just in general, doing your research ahead of time. So figuring out who's going to be there, going on LinkedIn and Google, seeing what they look like, what they're involved in the community, so that you can have a real conversation with them, standing in an open, format, so that when you're walking up to somebody, it's open and inviting. But share some of your favorite tips when you're talking to the partners and just other groups about networking and relationship building. What are some of your favorite tips?
As partners, one of the things I always talk about is we have to be accountable to each other. It's really about the accountability. And part of accountability is being prepared for a meeting. And so we have some powerful tools that we have. LinkedIn still has a free service. Just going on, if you have a meeting with somebody and you know that this meeting's on next Friday, go on LinkedIn, connect with them, see where they went to college, see what nonprofits they're maybe involved in. Sometimes I'm shocked. There was a meeting I was at a couple of weeks ago, and we had 50 something shared connections. And I'm like, how have we never met? But it's interesting because then you start sharing stories of how you know these people. So I always tell our partners, before you go to the meeting, get on LinkedIn. It's really powerful and gives you lots of insight so that the engagement can be more meaningful. And then when you're talking about the stances too, it's like, when you go to a middle school dance, you'll see a huddle of boys or a huddle of girls and nobody wants to break in. But at a CityCurrent event, we try to really, if you're standing in an open, like a U shape, it's amazing. Like all these people start coming at you. And all of a sudden you have this giant group of people all talking together. And it's only because of just the way you're standing makes you seem more open and inviting. And the last thing is, I've been a sales manager, I've been in sales my whole life. And it used to be back in the old days, it was like, how many cards could you give out? And now it's like, no, it's not about that. It's like, how many real meaningful conversations can you have? And if you go to an event and you walk away with 2 or 3 really good conversations, it's a success. The other thing we talked about, a lot of people share contacts. You have your contact card that's in your phone. The other thing that's just like 101, but I see it a lot that people don't. When your contact page in your own phone, you're like, well, it's my own contact. I don't really need to know that much, but make sure it's super descriptive and make sure that your picture's on it. Because if I met at an event, sometimes you don't remember somebody's last name, or like, why is this person in my phone? I don't remember. But if you have your picture, you have your company name, your title, all of your information, it just helps people remember who you are and engage. So again, some simple tips, but when you're at 180 events a year, like I am, I have to work smarter and not harder. So all these little things really make it easy to share the message and then to connect to people.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Wrap up with contact information. So website, social media, your email. How can everyone learn more about CityCurrent and connect in to learn more about all of our efforts and impact in Nashville and Middle Tennessee?
You can get all of our information at citycurrent.com. Obviously, you can always email me. It's kellym@citycurrent.com. I am a firm believer. There's not a dumb question. There's not a silly connection. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you like. We want to know those great, amazing stories that are in our community. And we feel like it's our obligation to share that stuff. So if you're in business and you've got a great story, if you're a new company that's just moved to town, connect with us. Like as much as you want to meet people, other people do want to meet you too. So don't hesitate, get involved. And even outside of CityCurrent, I would just say, if you're coming to Nashville, there's a lot of people moving here. So it's not a city anymore where everybody knows everybody. It's really a city where people are learning to meet everybody. Get involved in the nonprofit community. It's so strong here in Nashville. And find an area that doesn't have to necessarily align with your business, just align with your heart and what you're passionate about. Get involved, and it's amazing where that will take you as somebody that's new to an area. Get involved in a nonprofit, and you would be amazed at the number of people that you meet and the opportunities that you get.
Very well said. Well, Kelly, thank you for all you do to power the good, to lead the charge in Middle Tennessee for CityCurrent. Thank you to you and Eileen for being on the team. It's an honor having you for sure. You do a tremendous job. So thank you for all you do and for coming on the show.
We couldn't do it without you guys. I got to shout out to our Nashville team. Really, truly, it couldn't without you and Allison and Andrew. We couldn't do it either. So we appreciate it and just are having fun every single day, powering the good here in Nashville.